I need you to listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Because 24 hours ago, my life looked perfect on paper. I had the modern glass mansion overlooking Seattle's gray waters. I had the husband who was on the cover of tech magazines. I had everything except the one thing that mattered. Respect. It was raining last night. The kind of relentless, driving rain you only get in the Pacific Northwest. I was standing in the kitchen, watching the water streak down the floor-to-ceiling windows. When Travis walked in, he didn't say hello. He didn't ask about our son. He just walked past me, straight to the Marble Island, and started packing a Louis Vuitton duffel bag with a precision that chilled me to the bone. I watched him fold his silk shirts. I watched him place his limited edition Patek Philippe watch into a velvet travel case. And then, without even turning to look at me, he delivered the line that ended our marriage. "I need to uncouple," he said. His voice was flat, like he was ordering coffee. "My brand is evolving. Gemma, Vertex is about to go public. And frankly, you and Noah, you're vintage. I need futuristic idealities." He closed the zipper on the bag. The sound was loud in the silent, cold house. He finally turned to me then, his eyes empty. "I'm generous. So, here's the deal. You keep the boy. He doesn't fit the new aesthetic anyway. I'll take the house, the cars, and full intellectual property rights to the company. Sign the papers by Monday. And I won't make this ugly. Way, crease, and major." He took off his wedding ring platinum, heavy, and set it on the counter next to his car keys. He didn't treat it like a symbol of a vow. He treated it like an accessory that had gone out of style. Then he picked up his bag and walked out the door, leaving me standing there with a ring. Into silence. And a son upstairs who was about to lose his father. Before I tell you what I found on his encrypted drive that turned his futuristic life into a federal prison sentence, drop a comment. Where are you watching from right now? What time is it? I want to see how far this story travels. The silence in the hallway was broken by the sound of small, running feet. Noah came skidding into the room, holding a piece of construction paper like it was a golden ticket. He didn't know his father was leaving. He didn't know the house was about to be sold out from under us. He just knew he had drawn a robot. And he wanted to show his dad. "Look. Daddy!" he shouted, rushing toward Travis's legs. Travis didn't smile. He didn't bend down. He physically recoiled, taking a sharp step back as if Noah were contagious. He brushed the front of his Italian suit jacket, checking for imaginary dirt. "Not now, Noah," he snapped, his voice sharp and annoyed. "Daddy is building an empire. I don't have time for cartoons. And watch the hands. This is custom silk. RGs. Noah stopped dead. His arms dropped. The drawing fluttered to the marble floor, landing face down. Travis stepped over it, literally stepped over his son's work, and walked toward the garage without looking back. I knelt down and picked up the drawing. My hands were trembling, but my mind was suddenly terrifyingly clear. For years, I had told myself he was just stressed. I told myself he was a genius who needed space. But looking at the empty doorway, I realized the truth. To Travis, Noah and I weren't family. We were depreciating assets. We were overhead costs he was cutting to improve his bottom line. People always ask why women stay. They ask why we don't leave the first time he insults us, or the first time he forgets a birthday. But they don't understand the physics of it. It's the boiled frog syndrome. It didn't start with divorce papers and eviction threats. It started 6 years ago with a sigh when I spoke too loudly. Then it was a comment about my mom clothes being embarrassing at company dinners. Then, it was excluding me from financial meetings because I wouldn't understand the math. You never called in connection. The water heated up so slowly, degree by degree, that I didn't even realize I was burning alive. I adjusted my temperature to match his ego. I made myself smaller, quieter, softer, hoping that if I just took up less space, he would finally love me again. But you can't make a narcissist love you by disappearing. You only make it easier for them to erase you completely. I stood up, holding Noah's robot drawing against my chest. I looked at my reflection in the darkened window. The woman staring back at me looked tired. She looked worn down, but behind her eyes, something was waking up. Travis thought he was discarding a broken appliance. He forgot that before I was his wife, before I was a mother, I was the one who built his first algorithm. I wiped the single tear off my cheek. That was the last one he was ever going to get. I wasn't going to beg him to stay. I was going to find out exactly why he was leaving. The next morning, the house was silent. Travis had left for his crucial investor meeting in Napa, claiming he needed total focus. I knew better. I'd seen the confirmation email for a suite at the Auberge du Soleil, booked under Travis and guest. The guest wasn't an investor. It was Brianna, the 24-year-old influencer he'd been liking on Instagram for months. I watched his Porsche pull out of the driveway, the engine growling like a beast escaping a cage. The moment the taillights disappeared around the bend, the atmosphere in the house shifted. It didn't feel empty. It felt available. I walked to his home office. The door was locked. Of course, Travis loved locks. He loved passwords, non-disclosure agreements, and biometric scanners. He thought they made him invincible. He forgot that I was the one who set up his network security 5 years ago. I didn't need a key. I used the emergency override code I'd programmed into the smart lock system, a backdoor he didn't know existed because he never bothered to read the manual. The lock clicked open with a satisfying hum. Inside, the room smelled of expensive leather and secrets. I sat in his chair. It was too big for me, designed to make anyone else feel small. I opened his laptop. He had changed his password, obviously. But narcissists are predictable. They don't choose random strings of characters, they choose things that celebrate them. I tried his birthday. Incorrect. I tried the date Vertex was founded. Incorrect. Then I paused. I thought about what mattered most to him right now. His image, his futuristic brand. I typed in the ticker symbol he was planning for his IPO, VRTX, to the moon. Access granted. I didn't waste time looking at emails or texts. I didn't care about Brianna or the love letters. I went straight for the data. I opened the hidden partition on his drive, the one labeled System Logs. To anyone else, it looked like boring code. To me, it was a map. I began to dig. I pulled up the financial ledgers he kept separate from the official books. My eyes scanned the rows of numbers, my brain processing the patterns faster than I could consciously think. This wasn't just accounting. This was an autopsy. Here it was. A transfer of $2 million from Series B investors to a shell company in the Caymans. Another transfer of $500,000 to pay off a personal loan from a shark in Vegas. He wasn't investing the capital. He was using new money to pay old debts. I sat back, the glow of the screen illuminating the dark room. Vertex wasn't a tech giant. It was a Ponzi scheme. A beautifully packaged, high-tech lie. And the debt wasn't just a few thousand. I checked the totals. My breath hitched. Negative $9.2 million. If he took the company, he took the debt. All of it. I closed the laptop. My hands were steady now. I wasn't just a discarded wife anymore. I was the only person in the world who knew that the emperor wasn't just naked, he was bankrupt. I didn't hire a lawyer from a glass tower downtown. Travis would have respected a lawyer like that. He would have prepared for a fight. I needed someone Travis would look at and instantly dismiss. I found Arthur in a strip mall in Renton, sandwiched between a discount dry cleaner and a vape shop. His waiting room smelled like lemon polish and stale coffee. When I walked into his office, Arthur was wiping mustard off his tie. He looked like a rumpled bedsheet, mid-60s. Heavy-lidded eyes. And a suit that was 10 years out of style. He looked harmless. He looked like the kind of lawyer a desperate, defeated housewife would hire because she couldn't afford anyone better. He was perfect. Mrs. Saunders. He grunted, gesturing to a chair that had a piece of duct tape on the armrest. What can I do for you? Alimony? Custody battle? I didn't sit down. I reached into my purse and pulled out the flash drive containing the autopsy of Vertex Technologies. I placed it on his cluttered desk, right next to a towering stack of files. My husband is divorcing me, I said. He is demanding 100% of our marital assets. The house, the cars, and full ownership of his company. He says he built it all, so he keeps it all. Ender spelt, Arthur Seahead, rubbing his temples. And you want to fight for half. Look. In Washington state, equitable distribution is standard. But if he has high-priced counsel, no. I interrupted. I don't want halfly. I want to give him exactly what he asked for. In his videos, Arthur stopped rubbing his temples. He looked at me over the rim of his reading glasses. For the first time, I saw the intelligence sharpening behind the fatigue. Everything? He asked. Everything. I confirmed. I want you to draft a settlement agreement where I relinquish all claims to the real estate, the vehicles, and specifically, the corporate entities. In exchange, I get full physical custody of our son and $5,000 for moving expenses. Actually, one, he frowned, confused. Mrs. Saunders, I can't let you do that. It's malpractice. You'd be walking away with nothing. End quote, end quote. ADS. Open the drive. Arthur. An Evertax. He plugged it in. I watched him click through the folders. I saw his eyes scan the ledger I had extracted. I saw him pause on the liabilities column. He scrolled down to the bottom line, the negative $9.2 million. He looked at the wire fraud evidence. He looked at the Ponzi scheme structure. The sleepy, rumpled old man vanished. In his place was a predator who had just smelled blood in the water. He sat back in his chair. A slow, terrifying smile spreading across his face. He wants sole ownership, Arthur said, his voice dropping an octave. He insists on it. I replied. He wants to be the sole architect of his empire. Was it? Well, Arthur chuckled. A dry, raspy sound. If a man wants to eat the whole cake, it would be rude not to let him choke on it. With Cretians, we spent the next 2 hours drafting the document. It was a masterpiece of legal judo. On the surface, it was a total capitulation. It gave Travis every single thing his ego demanded. But buried in the standard language was the kill shot. We tied the assets irrevocably to their liabilities. If he claimed the company was his alone, he was claiming the debt was his alone. Arthur typed the final clause. You know, he said, looking up at me. Most people in your position want to scream. They want to burn the house down. As a NNA, I don't want to burn the house down, I said, picking up my purse. I just want to lock the doors while he's still inside. In a mauve, Arthur printed the settlement. It was heavy in my hands. It felt like a weapon. Send it over, I said. Let's see if he's arrogant enough to sign his own death warrant. End quote. For the next 3 days, my phone didn't stop buzzing. It wasn't a communication device anymore. It was a bludgeon. They wanted me to sign the settlement. They needed me to sign it. They were so desperate to take everything from me that they didn't realize they were sprinting toward a cliff. Brianna started the campaign. She slid into my DMs with the confidence of someone who has never been told no. Tutendes Deres, just sign the papers. Gemma, stop being bitter. You're holding up the future. Travis and I have a brand to launch. And your energy is honestly so toxic. Actioned in 25. She posted a story on Instagram a few minutes later, a photo of her hand resting on Travis's knee in his Porsche. Captioned, "Manifesting our empire. Obstacles are just stepping stones." Into 90s speeders. I wasn't an obstacle. I was the demolition crew. I didn't block her. I screenshotted every message. Evidence of coercion. Then came Sylvia, Travis's mother. She called me while I was packing Noah's toys into cardboard boxes. "You should be grateful," she hissed, her voice trembling with indignation. "Travis could sue you for emotional distress. He's been so generous, letting you keep the boy. And you're dragging your feet. Do you want to ruin him?" "No, Sylvia," I said, taping the box shut. "I want him to get exactly what he deserves." "It's Berita's say, then sign," she screamed. "Stop being a leech." I hung up. I didn't feel angry. I felt like a scientist observing a fascinating, self-destructive species. Finally, the email from Travis arrived. It was marked high importance. "My legal team is ready to file a motion for deliberate delay. If that document isn't signed by noon tomorrow, I will destroy you in court. I will spend every penny I have to make sure you end up with nothing. Tell our arsonist." I sat in the empty kitchen, the glow of the laptop illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I looked at the 50-page document Arthur had drafted. It was sitting right there on the table. Any rational person would read a legal contract before signing it. Any rational person would have their lawyer review the fine print. But Travis wasn't rational. He was a narcissist. I understood the cognitive dissonance of men like him. His brain physically rejected any reality where he wasn't the winner. He couldn't conceive of a world where I, the vintage wife, could outsmart him. He didn't see a settlement agreement, he saw a surrender treaty. To him, the thickness of the document wasn't a warning sign, it was proof of how complicated and important his victory was. If he read it, he might find the trap. But to read it would be to admit that I was a threat worth taking seriously. And his ego would never allow that. He needed to feed. He needed the win. I opened my email client. I didn't write a paragraph. I didn't beg. I typed a single word response to his threat. "Okay." End quote. I hit send. The trap was set. Now, all I had to do was wait for him to walk into it. The King County Superior Court does not look like a place where empires go to die. It smells of floor wax and stale anxiety. The fluorescent lights hum with a low, headache-inducing frequency. But at 9 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday, it became the stage for my husband's final performance. Travis arrived 10 minutes late, flanked by his lawyer, a man in his late 20s with a shark's grin and a suit that cost more than my car. Travis looked immaculate. He was wearing a navy bespoke suit, the kind he used to bill to the company expense account as marketing materials. Brianna was there, too. She sat in the back row of the gallery, phone raised, discreetly live-streaming to her 100,000 followers. She winked at Travis. He winked back. They treated the courtroom like a wedding chapel. They thought they were here to collect a prize. I sat at the petitioner's table next to Arthur. My lawyer looked even more disheveled than usual. He was cleaning his glasses with a tie that had a coffee stain on the tip. Travis's lawyer, a man named Sterling, barely glanced at us. To them, we were roadkill. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Holloway took the bench. She was a stern woman with no patience for theatrics. She looked over her reading glasses at the settlement agreement. "Mr. Saunders," she said, her voice echoing in the quiet room. "I have reviewed the proposed dissolution of assets. It is unusual. I have Dusner Filey." Travis stood up. He buttoned his jacket with a confident snap. "It's comprehensive. Your Honor, I built Vertex from the ground up. It's my intellectual property. My wife, well, she's better suited for a simpler life. I'm just giving her what she can handle. And, everyone. I didn't flinch. I kept my hands folded on the table. I watched the back of his neck. You understand? The judge continued. That by claiming 100% of the marital assets, including the residence, the vehicles, and the corporate entities, you are creating a significant imbalance? I'm aware, Travis said, his voice smooth. Practiced. I'm willing to take that burden. To getting a pommet. Arthur cleared his throat. It sounded like a dry rattle. Your Honor. My client accepts the imbalance. She just wants to move on. He saw, ratters, infractions. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Saunders. Do you agree to these terms? You are walking away with virtually nothing. And Isishan doubted. I agree. Your Honor, I said softly. Very well. The judge pushed the document forward. Mr. Saunders, have you reviewed the addendums attached to the asset schedule? Specifically, the liability disclosures? Travis laughed. It was a short, sharp bark of arrogance. Your Honor, I wrote the business plan. I don't need to read the receipt. Just give me the pen. Is Devery messed? Sterling, his lawyer, hesitated for a fraction of a second. He reached for the document. But Travis was already moving. He took his Mont Blanc pen from his pocket, the one I bought him for our 5th anniversary, and uncapped it. Time seemed to stop. I watched the ink flow onto the paper. The scratching sound of the nib was the loudest thing in the room. He signed his name with a flourish. Travis G. Sterling. Underlined. He capped the pen and tossed the document toward the clerk, like he was tipping a waiter. Done, he said, turning to grin at Brianna. Arthur stopped cleaning his glasses. He put them on. He stood up. And suddenly, he didn't look sleepy anymore. He looked like an executioner. Your Honor, Arthur said, his voice cutting through the air like a razor. Let the record show that the defendant has legally claimed sole 100% ownership of Vertex Technologies and all associated holding companies. End quote. I did, Travis said. Annoyed. Can we go? Which means, Arthur continued, ignoring him. Per clause 47. Subsection B of the agreement he just signed, the defendant also assumes 100% of the associated liabilities attached to those assets. Is Baden and Peristein his? Travis frowned. Liabilities? What liabilities? Sterling, his lawyer, grabbed the document. He flipped the pages frantically. His face went the color of old milk. The company is solvent. Travis scoffed. We have millions in venture capital. End quote. No, Arthur said. He slid a single piece of paper across the table. It was the printout from the hidden ledger. You have millions in new investor money used to pay off old debt. You have a shell game. And as of 10 seconds ago, you are the sole owner of a negative balance. In Waz's half, Arthur leaned forward. $9.2 million in unsecured debt. Travis, you just signed for it. It's all yours. In a lost 8, the silence in the courtroom was absolute. I saw Travis's eyes dart from Arthur to the paper, to me. The arrogance didn't fade. It shattered. That's not real, Travis stammered. That's accounting errors. End quote. It's forensic fact, I said. It was the first time I had spoken to him directly. And since you claimed sole ownership to cut me out, you can't claim spousal shared debt. You wanted the empire. Travis, you got the bill. And his. Brianna lowered her phone in the gallery. The live stream had stopped. Travis looked at his lawyer, begging for a lifeline. Sterling just closed his briefcase. He knew a corpse when he saw one. But Travis opened his mouth to scream. To deny it. To blame me. He didn't get the chance. Because the doors at the back of the courtroom didn't just open. They burst open. Travis stood there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish on a dock. The arrogance that had defined him for 8 years evaporated, replaced by a raw, ugly panic. He looked at the judge, then at his lawyer, then at me. "I rescind it," he shouted, his voice cracking. "I take it back. I didn't know about the debt." "She hid it, Mr. Gov. Saunders," Judge Holloway said, her voice like ice. "You just stated under oath that you wrote the business plan. You stated you knew the value of the assets. You cannot claim genius when you're winning and ignorance when you're losing." End quote. "It's a mistake," Travis yelled, sweat beading on his forehead. "Sterling? Do something." His lawyer, Sterling, didn't move. He was staring at the back of the courtroom. I didn't turn around. I didn't have to. I knew who was there. The heavy double doors at the back of the room didn't just open, they were thrown open with a force that rattled the wood paneling. 3 men and 2 women walked in. They weren't bailiffs. They wore windbreakers with yellow lettering that sucked the air out of the room. Travis froze. He looked at the agents. Then back at Arthur. Arthur leaned in, his voice a whisper that carried across the silence. "You see, Travis, when you run a Ponzi scheme, you can usually blame your partners. You can blame your accountants. You can say you were misled. In ASCA," Arthur pointed a finger at the settlement agreement on the table, "but you just signed a federal document claiming you are the sole architect. You claimed you, and only you, control the money. You just confessed to wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. And you did it on the court record. As a Mactors and a 7. One of the agents stepped forward. He didn't look like he wanted to negotiate. "Travis Sterling?" the agent barked. "I'm Special Agent Miller with the Securities and Exchange Commission. You are under arrest." Affers, way. The chaos that followed was absolute. Travis tried to back away, knocking his expensive leather chair into the table. "No. No. Wait. My wife, she handled the books. It was her." Agent Miller didn't even look at me. "We have your encrypted logs. Mr. Sterling. We know exactly who moved the money. Hands behind your back. R1s." I watched the handcuffs click. The sound was metallic and final. It was the sound of my freedom. In the gallery, the movement caught my eye. Brianna. She had lowered her phone. Her face was a mask of horror, not for Travis, but for herself. She realized she wasn't live streaming the launch of a power couple. She was live streaming a felony. She scrambled to her feet, shoving her phone into her designer bag, and bolted toward the exit, her heels clicking frantically on the floor. She didn't look back at him once. Travis was being led away. He looked wild, his hair messed up, his suit jacket pulled askew. As they passed my table, he locked eyes with me. "Gemma," he screamed, desperate, pleading. Tell them we're partners. Tell them we did it together." I stood up slowly. I smoothed the front of my blazer. I looked him dead in the eye. "We aren't partners, Travis," I said, my voice calm and clear. "You said it yourself. I'm just vintage, and you work alone. It's erections." The agents pushed him through the side door. The heavy wood slammed shut, cutting off his shouts. The courtroom fell silent again. Judge Holloway looked at the empty space where my husband had been standing. She picked up her gavel and brought it down with a sharp crack. Hearing adjourned. Enestament and cooled. I walked out of the courthouse doors, and the first thing I noticed was the smell. Rain on pavement. Clean, cold, and real. The air inside had been recycled for too long. It was pouring. A classic Seattle gray curtain that washed the color out of everything. I stood on the top step for a moment, watching the water pool in the gutters. I didn't have an umbrella. And I didn't care. The rain felt like a baptism. Behind me, the commotion of the courthouse faded. I didn't turn around when the doors opened again. I didn't look back to see them loading Travis into the back of a federal vehicle. I didn't need to see it. I had lived in his prison for 8 years. I didn't need to visit him in his new one. I walked to the parking lot. My car was parked in the back row, a 10-year-old sedan with a dent in the rear bumper that Travis had refused to pay to fix because it wasn't worth the investment. It looked beautiful to me. I opened the back door. Noah was sitting in his booster seat, playing with a Transformer toy. Arthur's paralegal, a kind woman named Sarah who had offered to watch him during the hearing, smiled at me from the front seat. "Is it done?" she asked softly. "It's done," I said. I climbed into the driver's seat. The leather was cracked, and the engine made a funny noise when I turned the key. But it started. It was mine. The debt was gone. The gaslighting was gone. The constant, crushing weight of trying to be perfect for a man who only loved reflections was gone. I pulled my phone out of my purse one last time. I opened the hidden folder labeled VRTX, logs. Thousands of files. The evidence of his greed. His lies. His ruin. I selected all. Delete. The screen flashed, then went blank. I looked in the rearview mirror. Noah looked up, his eyes bright. "Mommy." "Look, it's raining," he cheered. "I see it, baby," I said, putting the car in gear. "It's just water. It washes everything clean. It's fine as I president stay." We didn't have a mansion anymore. We didn't have millions of dollars. I had $5,000, a used car, and a son who loved me. And for the first time in a decade, when I looked at the road ahead, I didn't see a dead end. I saw a highway. They told me I was nothing without them. They told me I was just a vintage accessory in a futuristic world. But looking at my son laughing at the rain in the back seat, I realized I was everything. All along.